Welcome back. Today I will talk about cryptocurrencies and how they can be used in the context of financial crime. Again, I will record several short videos because we have to switch between different appliances. First, I just want to talk about some general issues. Then I will show you how to get data to analyze Bitcoin and to think also about Bitcoin in terms of investing decisions. And then in a second part I will switch to Tails to show you how to set up a Bitcoin wallet, and we talk about more private types of Bitcoin in the third part of this unit. So let me just start talking about cryptocurrencies. I think you definitely know what I'm talking about. The most popular one is obviously Bitcoin, but that's not the only one we have to consider. First, it's important to think about why we need to talk about cryptos in the context of financial crime. The benefit of cryptocurrencies is that, at least this is what the public thinks, that they offer a high level of privacy, and also they are anonymous. So put differently, it's very difficult to identify who is doing a transaction and to identify an individual in a network of transactions. Now this is partly true but partly false, and one has to be quite careful about what is actually public knowledge and what isn't. Obviously, there is quite a bit of evidence that cryptocurrencies have been used for illegal transactions. I think this is very hard to deny. However, in terms of volume, many people argue that in terms of volume, the share of illegal transactions is actually quite small. Now, the honest truth is it's very difficult to establish whether transactions are legal or illegal. And also because of trading patterns, it's very difficult to know why volume occurs. So obviously when it comes to money itself, so just using money as an exchange for goods and services, the purpose tends to be I use money to buy a certain good or a certain service. In the case of cryptos, there's lots of trading going on between different coins, for instance. So also trading used for potentially arbitrage opportunities or speculation. So not all of it is really used for any transaction. Yeah, so also transactions would include transactions related to illegal substances, for instance. So it's not very easy to establish the extent of illegal transactions which are funded using cryptocurrencies. The same applies to money laundering. Of course, in theory, you could use cryptocurrencies for money laundering. In practice, to be honest, there are many different ways of achieving the same without cryptocurrencies. And very often what you need is basically a network of companies to actually hide transactions and to literally launder money. So it's not necessarily the case that cryptocurrencies are the only way of achieving that. It's certainly true as well that you can use cryptocurrencies to move money across borders in a much easier fashion, but again there are other ways of doing that. And of course, it's undeniable that cryptocurrencies can be used for investment and also speculation purpose. I won't actually go into this in any further detail because our focus is very much on financial crime and not really cryptocurrency as a so-called asset class. But I'm happy to discuss it in our live sessions, and of course feel free to explore cryptocurrencies in your assignments further if you wish to do so. Now, when it comes to also from the investment perspective, it's always useful to have access to data. And I want to show you one very convenient way to access data using an application programming interface, or API in short. Now, APIs are plentiful. There are many APIs that can be used. The most famous ones are linked to the Google search engine, but also Yahoo Finance offers a very useful API that connects you to financial data, including even high frequency data. It's not really the highest frequency you can get, and there are some delays built in for commercial reasons. However, I think this is quite good to have, and it's available for free if you know how to use it. So that is just a chart of Bitcoin, which I just looked at just in the last days of recording this video. And of course, maybe by now it's already above the $70,000 mark, who knows, or maybe way below than the current level. Now, what I want to do first is I want to show you how to get the data from Yahoo Finance using the API, and then we talk a bit more about what these different cryptocurrencies do and how they can be used potentially for very private transactions. Now, what I do is I will switch to my preferred text editor. So I already open it here. This is Sublime. I have done multiple videos on how to use Python, and of course I'm sure you already are Python experts by now, so I don't provide a very general introduction to how to use Python. I just now want to focus on the API and how to get the data and different ways to actually achieve that. Again, you can do the same in different text editors. You don't have to use Sublime. Sublime is kind of my favorite editor. I use it quite a lot, not only for Python, but also if I do some web development. It's just, you know, something I quite enjoy. But there are many others, obviously. And also you can use an integrated development environment, so an IDE, which has certain benefits. So for instance, in my case, I use Spider, I also use PyCharm, but there are many others. There's Visual Studio Code and so on. Yeah, so VS Code. So plenty of different things you can explore, and they tend to be all for free. Sometimes you have professional packages for software developers, but none of this is really what you might need at the moment. So here I am. I'm using Sublime, and I will use my command window, my command prompt, to execute my script. So first, what I need to do is I have to potentially install the package I'm using. I'm using yfinance. So what you can do is you can use the pip installer. If you don't know what the pip installer is, please let me know, but I assume you already covered that. And install the latest version of yfinance. Apart from that, there are other ways to get access to the data, and so the first thing I do is I will actually add a few libraries. Not all of them I might actually need. I have to see what I actually need. Okay, let me just get started. So I actually definitely would like to have my matplotlib just to do some plotting. So I do an import matplotlib.pyplot as plt. So that's fairly standard. I will just now save the script somewhere. So I just save it here as an attempt. I just or maybe just call this main in good old C++ fashion. So here we are. So we have an import statement. We import our matplotlib.pyplot. So this will give me access to all the visualization in matplotlib. There are many other packages you can use for that. It's just one of my favorite. You could now also work in pandas later, or in NumPy if you want to do some further work with the data. But I just refrain from that. It's not necessarily needed. So the other thing I will do is I will include now my finance. So that's the one I just spoke about as YF. You could, as an alternative, also run this through pandas as well. So there's another package, and you see this in the solutions which I will put online, that an alternative package exists through the pandas library, which also downloads data. It's entirely up to you which one you want to use. I now use the yfinance package. Now, how to get the data? Now this you really have to look up. So the thing to do is you look for yfinance. You will get this usually on GitHub, and you will get a documentation which tells you how data is downloaded and what kind of format. So usually when you do a data download, you have to name an object. So I just call the object data, and then I refer to my Yahoo Finance package, and I use download, which would give me access to the API, and then you can just specify here a ticker symbol. Now for Bitcoin, and you have to look this up in Yahoo, it's BTC and then USD for US dollar. You can define a start date, an end date, an interval, or you can define a period. So that's up to you. So I go with a period. So here I want to have maybe only 1 day. So this is a pretty short window, and I want to do an interval, and this is high frequency now of 1 minute. Yeah. Again, you can of course change all of that, or you can specify a start date and end date as well. And you see this in the script I upload on Blackboard. Now the next thing I want to do is I simply want to plot it. So I do a plt.plot, and then I refer to my data object. So I just say data. I use the dot operator. And I go into the close, which is the closing price at the end of each interval. So again, this is a high frequency data set. Now again, these attributes you have to look up. You wouldn't know this necessarily. So you have to check your Yahoo Finance package and check what attributes are actually included in this particular object. And then what I want to do is I want to save my figure, and I can just put it somewhere. Just call this now figure.png. PNG is a standard format which I can use quite nicely in LaTeX, but also in other applications. I'm a LaTeX person, so for me it's quite useful to do it in LaTeX. And then I just specify here show, which means I want to actually see the figure as an output. So just a few lines of code that hopefully should do it. Let's see what happens. I might have forgotten something we have to see. So I now move into my Python script. So I saved it here as main. Let me just change the view. I don't like that. I want to have it as a list. I click up here, type in CMD, which opens the Windows prompt. Here we are. Of course, if you work on a Mac OS, you go now into your terminal. You have to make sure you are in the correct folders. You might need to do a change directory command. I just type in Python, so this gives me access to my Python installation. In this case, I don't use a particular virtual environment, so this is my main installation, but of course if you use a virtual environment, you should then make sure you are in the right environment. You might also run this using Anaconda, for instance, in Spider, which is definitely an option here. Okay, so I just type in main.py, try to run this, and let's see. It might take a while, so that should connect now to Yahoo Finance. It does, and off it goes, and here we have our little figure. Yeah, so it downloads some data and it plots the data. So this is now the Bitcoin price in US dollar at the time of recording, so it will look very different most likely when you do it. And we also have here our figure generated. Yeah, that's all as it should be. Good. Right, so this is a very easy way to get access to data, and please feel free to explore this further. It's very useful, and I think it's a great resource to get access to financial data. And again, you can of course use it for your own assignments. Good, a bit more about cryptocurrencies. I don't want to go too much into blockchains. Quite possible this has been covered also in other courses. For us, it matters to some extent because it's linked to our idea about privacy and being anonymous, because to some extent, in particular in the case of Bitcoin, there are limits to that. So when you think about standard money flows, you have a centralized system. So you have intermediaries, you have banks, for instance, that are able to verify transactions. If you move money from one bank account to another bank account, you use these intermediaries. And of course, that also means that information is in a way concentrated. Yeah? And of course, obviously, when it comes to money laundering, for instance, banks play a very vital role in policing money flows. And of course, if you do these transfers between accounts and you cross borders, again, you can actually try to verify transactions, and potentially you can block or flag up transactions that are potentially problematic. Now, cryptos are different. They are not centralized, they are decentralized. It's a so-called peer-to-peer structure. So that's a very different idea about verification. In general, you have a so-called private and public key. So when you conduct a transaction, you sign with your own private key, and also a public key is included, which is used to verify the signature. So what happens is a message is sent to the network, and so the network is basically this decentralized networks of miners that try to verify the transaction. And this information, basically, when it comes to the network of the miners and the record keeping of it, is actually what you might call the blockchain. It's basically like a public ledger. So it could be, it is actually, it is public, so you can use it, for instance, to do some calculations on flows, potentially. So it's possible to identify flows on that level. It doesn't mean that you can link an individual to a transaction, but you can use these flows to monitor what is going on in a network, which is enough in many cases to actually pinpoint to potential problems, shall we say. So that's the main idea. Now, to a large extent, that is a higher level of privacy compared to using standard bank accounts, of course, because you don't always have to identify yourself, obviously, in this setting. However, there are limitations to it. So when it comes to some other basics. When you do use cryptos, you need a wallet. The wallet is not linked to your real name directly. However, and that's the tricky bit, to actually put money into it, for instance, if you use British pound and you want to use your pound and exchange it into cryptos, and you use a verified bank account to buy cryptos, well, then your bank account is linked to this transaction. Yeah, so it does not mean that you're completely private. So there is an issue here about how you get into it, so to speak, and how you avoid linking your actual identity to, for instance, bitcoins. Yeah, and also the issue is there in terms of the ledger being public. Yeah, so it can be monitored, and you can use it to calculate, for instance, balances, and it can be used to target people, as in terms of hacking and security, and that actually makes a difference. Now, to create wallets, we actually should move to tails. So I will do this in a separate video. So I see you in the next session.